Hello everyone, my name is Andreas Arias, and today we'll be talking about the politics of the interface, power and its exercise in electronic contact zones. This was written by Cynthia Self and Richard Self. What started the investigation? The Selfs are English teachers, and they had a conversation with a professor named Trent Batson. And Trent told him this story about how him and his colleague, who was also a professor and who was born in India, were coming back home from Mexico. Once they reached the Border Patrol took his friend aside and put him through a separate test and asked him for identification. He carried a photocopy of the green card that identified him as a resident alien rather than the card itself, as required by the United States law. The Border Patrol interrogated him for an hour and a half. Trent did not get questioned and believes it was because he was Caucasian. This sparked the investigation for the Selfs to see if we also have borders within our daily lives. What they discovered was that there are political and ideological computer interfaces. Ideological interfaces represent dominant tendencies in our culture. Borders in computer interfaces can be mapped as complex political landscapes. Teachers and students can learn to see and alter such borders in productive ways. Computers as learning environments, history and motivation. The Selfs have discovered practices that are more democratic and less systematically oppressive, and this is called the rhetoric of technology. Two examples of this are the online discussion groups in which individuals discover their own motivations for using language. We've done a lot of online discussions in this course. We're pretty used to that. Online conferences in which students' race, gender, and age and sexual preference may not figure in the same way as they do in more conventional face-to-face settings. But they say that this can be dangerous. The reason why it can be dangerous, they state that the computer interfaces can support sexism, racism, and colonialism. Evidence for this claim lies in the different uses in which computers are put in minority classrooms and majority classrooms. They state that in large minority classrooms, computers are used primarily to provide basic skill instructions delivered by drill and practice software. In contrast, computers used in majority schools are used for higher order literary and cognitive skills as objects of study. Computers and pain. Knowing this information can bring pain to teachers. The Selfs believe that the computer may be used to be aimed towards the support of sexism, racism, and colonial attitudes. Most English teachers want equal learning, broad involvement, and democratic growth. Mapping the interface of computers as educational space. Objects that represent the white-collar inhabitants. Folders, files, documents, telephones, fax machines, clocks, and watches, and desk calendars. These are similar to a computer interface. The Selfs have asked the question why the interface does not have kitchen countertops, mechanics workbench, fast food restaurants, which could constitute the virtual world in different terms according to the values and orientations of, respectively, women in the home, skilled laborers, or the rapid increasing numbers of employees in the fast food industry. Interface and capitalist economy. The Selfs have noticed on the Macintosh interface, information is gathered in this order: files to folders, hard drives to memory, and they state that they each have their own authority and value within the capitalist economy. Primary interfaces are usually in English and ignore other languages. English is the default language. And they also state that to write or edit in another language, the user must go to a layout pull-down menu and then select, with some irony, we hope, the item labeled Other. Students, computers, and confrontation. When students want to use computers, they are confronted with value on middle class, corporate culture, capitalism, and the commodity of information, standard English, and these values concurrently do violence to and encourage the rejection of languages of different races and the values of non-dominant culture and gender groups. So, what do you do? They state that one of the ways to come to this understanding is to work with students and computer specialists to redesign, reimage, and recreate interfaces to attempt to avoid disabling and devaluing non-white, non-English language and background students and women. Our goal in creating these new interfaces should be to help rewrite the relationship between the center and the margins of our culture. Questions. Do you think the computer interfaces help support sexism, racism, and colonialism? If so, what do you think that can be done to change that? I would love to hear your thoughts.